In today's video, we're diving into some spine-chilling wildlife attacks. From a bear opening a car door in Yellowstone to a tiger ambushing a family at a safari. But first, we've got a terrifying story of a man's peaceful hike that quickly turned into a nightmare when a black bear trapped him in his car. It was June 29, 2013, and Yellowstone National Park was just waking up. The morning air was cool and fragrant. Pine sap, river mist, and the distant campfire smoke mingled under a pale blue sky. Sunlight filtered through the tall lodge poles like golden dust, and somewhere far off a raven called into the quiet. In the calm, you could almost forget how wild this place really was. Jason Rutley had always felt at home here. He knew the curves of these trails, the rhythm of the forest at dawn. This was his fourth summer trip in as many years, a tradition he'd built for himself. As always, he'd risen before first light, brewed a thermos of coffee, and headed out alone. Garnet Hill was one of his favorite hikes, secluded, blooming with early wildflowers, and far from the crowds. It felt like Yellowstone's quiet soul lived here. He was a man of habit, tidy, measured. Always locked the car, double-checked the trail map, stored his food in bear-proof containers. He'd even corrected others when he saw mistakes. Last summer, a family had left a loaf of bread on a picnic table, and he'd gently reminded them of the danger. Bears could be anywhere. That's what he used to say. But that morning, maybe it was the long drive the day before or the way the warm sun had made him feel safe, he let a few things slip. He ate a turkey sandwich in the car and dropped the crumpled wrapper on the passenger seat. Just for now, he told himself. He didn't lock the doors. He was only going to be gone for an hour. He returned just after 7 a.m., boots dusty and heart full. He slid into the driver's seat, windows cracked, and leaned back with his thermos watching the trees sway. This was the part he loved, the stillness after motion. The soft creak of pine boughs overhead. The park was so peaceful it felt curated, almost dreamlike. Jason didn't know it, but something was already moving through that dream. Just 200 feet away, a black bear had caught his scent. The bear wasn't new to the area. Like every other bear, it had roamed the stretch of its forest many times, learning from experience that where there were parked cars, there was sometimes food. Bits of trash left behind, a cooler forgotten. It wasn't aggression that drove it, just hunger sharpened by memory. Jason sat in silence, sipping his coffee as the bear approached on soft pads. It circled the car, sniffed the air, then rose on its hind legs, leaned a paw on the door handle, and pulled. The latch clicked. Jason turned, confused. What happened next unfolded in less than 20 seconds. The bear's head filled the frame of the open door, its breath hot and sharp. Jason flinched, reaching with one hand to slam the door shut, but the bear lunged first. A swipe of its paw tore through Jason's flannel and into his chest. He gasped. The thermos clattered to the floor. Then came the second strike, this one to his neck. Blood sprayed across the dashboard. Jason twisted, kicked, tried to shove the beast back. But the space was too small. The car, once a refuge, became a cage. Panic made the air feel thick. His fingers slipped on the gear shift. The bear's weight pressed against him, claws ripping fabric, flesh. It wasn't a long attack, but it was personal, catastrophic. The bear didn't roar, it didn't growl. It just moved with frightening intent, driven by instinct and the smell of food. And just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. Maybe it was the sharp metallic tang of blood, maybe Jason's scream, wet, half-choked, disrupted the bear's logic. It huffed once, blinked, then stepped backward and dropped down. Silence returned as though the trees themselves had paused to watch. The bear walked off, disappearing into the pines. Jason remained. His body slumped against the center console, chest rising and falling in shallow, uneven gasps. His hands clutched at his throat, but the bleeding was too much. He was alone. No cell signal, no help in sight. And he knew somewhere in those last fading minutes that it had all been so close to avoidable. 3 hours passed before a family in an RV noticed the open car door. They slowed, then stopped. What they saw inside stayed with them for life. Park rangers responded quickly, but it was too late. They traced the bear's movements through tracks and trail cameras. It wasn't hard to find. It had returned to the area by a nearby creek. It wasn't aggressive, just expectant. It had learned the wrong lessons. And so the rangers made the hard call. They euthanized it that evening. Jason's death rippled outward, through the park staff, then through the news, and eventually through policy. Yellowstone updated its visitor guidelines, more signs, more education, a new emphasis on the risks of leaving food or trash even for a moment. Because sometimes, even a quiet place with a pretty view can be the last place you ever see. Jason Rutley thought a sandwich wrapper wouldn't matter. A tourist in South Africa thought an open window was harmless. But on that warm May afternoon, a silent lioness turned a photo op into a fatal ambush. It was May 17, 2015, a day Sadie Holloway had dreamed about for most of her life. The morning air in South Africa had a weightless kind of stillness, the kind that tricks the heart into believing all is right with the world. The Holloway sisters drove slowly down a road that stitched its way through golden plains and rustling grasslands. Acacia trees stood like quiet guardians, their twisted branches painting delicate shadows on the ground. For Sadie, this wasn't just a vacation, it was a pilgrimage. She had spent over 2 decades working as a nurse in Oregon, patching wounds and offering comfort, always giving. But this trip, this journey into the heart of the wild was for her. Her soul had long been drawn to big cats, especially lions. She revered them, she studied them. She imagined what it would be like to lock eyes with one and feel, if only for a second, that raw, wild grace. Everything about that morning felt almost cinematic. The sunlight breaking through the trees, the quiet companionship between sisters, the distant silhouettes of giraffes and zebras drifting across the savannah. The air smelled of dust, grass, and something sweetly alive. Sadie kept her window rolled up, of course. She knew the rules. They had been printed clearly on brochures, posted at the lodge, and repeated by the guides. Stay in your vehicle, keep the windows closed. But with beauty comes complacency. Nothing had gone wrong in the previous days. The animals had stayed at a respectful distance, and the lions they had seen before were either sleeping or disinterested. No drama, no danger. It all felt safe. And then the dream sharpened. On a narrow stretch of road lined with tall, whispering grass, they spotted her, a lioness. She lay beneath a tree only 10 feet from the path. Her tawny fur melted into the grass, but her golden eyes were open, watching. She didn't move, didn't twitch. She looked calm, regal. As if posing for the perfect photo, Sadie eased the car to a stop. Her sister raised her camera, trying to focus through the dusty windshield, but Sadie frowned. The window on her side was spotted and streaked. A photo through it would be ruined. She hesitated. The lioness wasn't doing anything. She looked lazy, harmless. Lions often appear docile during the heat of the day, conserving energy for hunting hours. But their burst of speed and strength can be explosive, triggered in an instant. Just one quick photo, Sadie thought, one perfect shot. With a soft whir, she pressed the button. The window rolled down. Warm wind slid into the car, scented with dirt and sunlight. Sadie leaned toward the opening, camera raised. Her sister opened her mouth, maybe to say something, maybe to warn her, but the words never came. Because the lioness was already moving. No sound, no warning. Just an explosion of muscle and fury. In the blink of an eye, the lioness closed the distance. 10 feet was nothing to her. She leapt, her forelimbs crashing against the side of the car, her head and one massive paw punching through the open window. Her teeth found Sadie's shoulder. The sound was sickening. A crunch, wet and deep. Sadie screamed. It was a sound that didn't sound human. The lioness pulled, dragging her halfway out of the window. Her upper body hung outside, limbs kicking wildly, blood pouring in hot streams down the car door. Her sister sat paralyzed for a second, watching in horror as Sadie thrashed, her face twisted in agony, trying to fight off a predator built to kill. Then instinct kicked in. Her sister slammed her foot on the gas. The tires skidded, spitting gravel and dust as the car lurched forward. The lioness held on, dragged a few feet before finally letting go. The momentum was too much. She dropped back into the grass like a shadow retreating from light. Sadie slumped inside, half folded across the console. Her shoulder was torn open, blood pooling fast. Her skin had gone pale. Her sister kept driving, one hand on the wheel, the other pressing a towel against the wound, sobbing and whispering her name like a prayer. The road twisted endlessly. Every bump made Sadie groan, weaker each time. Her sister begged her to hold on, but by the time the ranger station appeared in the dust ahead, Sadie's breaths were shallow. Her body, once so full of energy and joy, was giving out. Rangers ran to the car. Medics tried everything: bandages, pressure, oxygen, but her injuries were too severe. Sadie Holloway died minutes later. Her sister, hands still stained with her blood, collapsed beside her in shock. The lioness was found later that day, tranquilized without harm, and relocated to a more remote area of the park. She hadn't attacked out of malice, it was instinct. It always is. The news spread fast. Headlines asked how it could have happened. The truth was painfully simple. A window rolled down for one perfect photo. Sadie's death shattered the illusion that wildlife could ever be tamed by awe or admiration. She loved lions, she respected them, but love doesn't rewrite the rules of the wild. Her sister returned home alone. The safari brochure was still folded in her suitcase. So was Sadie's favorite scarf, still faintly smelling of sun-blocking grass. The trip they had planned for years had ended in screams, then silence. Sadie Holloway never heard the lion's silent charge, but a guy in the Hwange National Park saw his death coming and still couldn't escape. In the heat of a Zimbabwe afternoon, a towering bull elephant turned a safari truck into wreckage, trapping a poor soul beneath its rage. It was October 5th, 2017. A convoy safari truck rumbled gently over a red dirt path, its open-air frame tall enough for passengers to stand and gaze over the golden plains. Among them was Curtis Flanders, a 47-year-old high school teacher from Arizona, clinging to the rails and drinking in the moment. It was his first time in Africa, and he never felt so alive. Curtis had worked behind the same desk for over 2 decades, grading papers, juggling parent-teacher conferences, enduring staff meetings that never ended. His marriage had quietly dissolved years ago. His kids were grown now. Empty house, long days, quiet evenings. But when he was younger, Curtis had always imagined something bigger, an untamed world full of meaning and raw experience. Now, in this moment, far from copy machines and parking lots, he was standing at the edge of that wild dream. The safari guide spoke softly, pointing to tracks in the sand. The engine hummed underfoot. The group murmured, scanning the brush for movement. Then the truck rounded a bend and everything changed. An elephant, a giant, a shadow with tusks, standing alone just ahead in the clearing. Curtis raised his camera instinctively. The bull elephant towered above the shrubs, its ears flaring and trunk grazing the air. Light glinted off its thick ivory tusks. Every person on the truck froze, not in fear but reverence. For many, it was the most magnificent animal they'd ever seen. But the guide saw something else, something urgent. There was a fluid dripping down the elephant's cheeks, thick, dark secretions from the temporal glands. Its stride had a tension to it. The air carried a dense, musky odor, subtle but unmistakable. Musts. It was a word few on the truck knew, but one the guide had learned to fear. When a bull elephant enters must, testosterone levels can spike up to 60 times normal, flooding the animal with aggression, unpredictability, and power. Even seasoned elephants grow volatile in this state. They're faster, meaner, and can charge with little provocation. The guide whispered sharply, "Stay still, no sudden movement." He began to ease the vehicle into reverse. Curtis, still standing at the rear rail, didn't catch the tension in the guide's voice. He just saw a story unfolding, a real one. Not behind glass, not pixelated through a screen. A story for his kids, for himself. He adjusted the lens. And the bull elephant sniffed the wind, then lowered its head, then charged. The bull broke into a full sprint, trunk swinging like a whip, tusks pointed forward. It was a freight train wrapped in skin, faster than anyone thought possible. The guide shouted, yanking the gear back, jamming the pedal. The truck groaned in reverse, tire sliding, but it was too late. The impact was seismic. The elephant slammed its skull into the side of the truck, metal shrieking as it bent inward. People screamed. The truck rocked violently, passengers thrown against the rails and each other. Another hit, and then the whole vehicle toppled, crashing sideways into the dust. Curtis was launched clear. He struck the earth shoulder first, rolling through dry grass before landing face up near the crushed side of the truck. Sand filled his mouth. His camera cracked beside him. Around him, the air buzzed with panic. Screams, groans, sobbing. But he couldn't rise. The elephant gave one last violent snort, circled the wreckage, then stomped off into the brush. Curtis didn't move. Inside the vehicle, survivors cried out. One woman's arm was broken. Another man had a deep gash across his forehead. But they were alive. Dazed and bloodied, they crawled free, gasping in the smoky sunlight. A British tourist found Curtis. She yelled that he's not responding. The guide radioed for help, his voice shaking but clear. Rangers were dispatched from the nearest station roughly 20 minutes away. Medical gear and backup were loaded before their trucks peeled off into the brush. They reached the scene and assessed quickly. Curtis's chest rose only slightly with each breath. His ribs were shattered, internal bleeding, head trauma. They tried to stabilize him in the truck as they raced to a remote medical outpost, but he never made it. Curtis Flanders was pronounced dead before noon. Later, an autopsy confirmed what they suspected. The fall had caused catastrophic injuries. The weight of the truck's roll, the force of the impact, it was all too much. He died seeking something real, something wild. The elephant wasn't hunted, it hadn't gone rogue. It was simply being what it was, an animal pushed by instincts no human could contain. Curtis's children flew to Zimbabwe days later. They stood at the bend in the road next to a patch of grass now flattened and quiet. They held each other, said nothing. The dust moved gently around their feet. Curtis Flanders was caught in the wild fury of an elephant, but a 39-year-old lady in China found herself facing an even more terrifying predator. In a moment of distraction, a Siberian tiger seized her in the blink of an eye, dragging her from the safety of her car. It was August 2nd, 2016. Heat shimmered off the paved roads, turning the city's outskirts into a haze of concrete and golden dust. At the edge of it all, just past the last stretch of highway, sat Balading Wildlife World, a drive-through safari park where visitors could view lions, tigers, and bears from the comfort and supposed safety of their own vehicles. Inside a rented SUV, the Cobb family crawled along the narrow safari roads, windows up, air conditioning on full blast. Natalie, 39, sat in the passenger seat, her sunglasses pushed halfway up her forehead, scanning the map again with quiet frustration. Tom, her husband of 12 years, kept his eyes on the gravel path ahead, his grip on the steering wheel just a little too tight. In the back seat, their 7-year-old daughter Lily leaned into the window, chin in her hands, lost in the wonder of watching zebras lope through the tall grass. On the surface, it looked like a perfect family outing, but inside the car the air was thick, not just from the heat, but from the things left unsaid. Their marriage had been under strain. The recent move to Beijing for Tom's new job had upended their routines, and tensions that once simmered were now closer to boiling. Today was supposed to be a reset, a family memory, something to hold on to. Instead, it felt like everyone was walking on glass. The safari itself unfolded in slow, lazy scenes. Giraffes moved like shadows through trees. Monkeys watched from overhead. But as the car inched deeper into the predator section, past a warning sign that clearly stated, "Do not exit vehicle under any circumstances," the emotional silence inside the SUV began to fracture. Natalie sighed, folding the map with sharp fingers. She pointed out that Tom missed the left again. Tom didn't respond. She repeated it, and Tom cut her off, saying that he heard her the first time. There was a beat of silence, then she said that maybe she should drive. Tom pulled the car over without a word. Dust swirled around them as the tires stopped near a bend in the road, bordered by waist-high grass and a few scattered trees. In the distance, no animals were visible. It seemed safe. Still stewing, Natalie reached for the door handle. Lily, wide-eyed and still innocent to the tension, looked up from her window. Natalie stepped out. The heat hit her first, then the silence, unnatural, sudden. There were no birds, no animal sounds, just the faint creak of the car settling in the heat. She walked briskly around the front of the vehicle, hair whipping in the dry breeze. The door slammed behind her. And from the tall grass, something stirred. The Siberian tiger, the largest of all tiger subspecies, had been lying low in the undergrowth, hidden by the brush and shadow. Weighing up to 600 pounds and stretching over 10 feet in length, it was a creature built for stealth and power. Its dense orange coat, striped like broken sunlight, blended perfectly into the waving reeds. A natural camouflage evolved for the snowy forest of eastern Russia and northern China. Massive, silent, watching. Its ears twitched at the car door's thud. Its amber eyes locked onto the moving figure. In one breathtaking motion, the tiger leaps from the grass. 10 feet of muscle, claws, and pure instinct. Natalie didn't even have time to scream before the tiger's jaws clamped down on her shoulder, dragging her sideways in a blur of violence. Her legs kicked against the dirt as she was yanked into the grass. Her screams sharp and primal, echoing off the quiet hills. Tom lunged out of the car, shouting her name. He ran toward the noise, fist clenched, panic overtaking fear. But the tiger turned, fluid, focused, and swiped. One blow. Tom went down hard, blood on his temple. His cry cut short as the predator turned back to its prey and vanished into the grass with her. Inside the SUV, Lily sat paralyzed, her small hands gripping the door, face pressed against the glass. Through the windshield, she saw flashes of movement, her mother's shoes disappearing into the green, her father lying twisted in the dust. Her voice rose in a trembling scream that no one heard in time. By the time rangers arrived, alerted by surveillance footage and frantic staff watching the live feed, it was already over. Tom and Natalie Cobb were found just yards from the road, both fatally mauled, their final moments violent and brief. Lily was discovered still inside the car, physically unharmed, eyes wide and silent, the aftermath frozen in her memory. The tiger, later tranquilized and relocated within the park, had acted according to its nature. There was no provocation, no mistakes from the animal, only one from the humans. Security footage confirmed it. The moment Natalie opened the door, she stepped across an invisible line that could never be uncrossed. In the official report, it was called a fatal lapse in judgment. To Lily Cobb, it was the day the world changed. Silent, sudden, and forever marked by the sound of tall grass rustling in the wind. Natalie Cobb never saw the tiger coming, but a tourist in Texas had no chance against a troop of wild baboons. In the blink of an eye, what should have been a peaceful lunch turned into a deadly struggle for survival. It was July 28, 2015. The Texas summer sun blazed down on the small town of Glen Rose. Elijah DuPont, 33, had been planning this trip for weeks. It was a rare day off from work, and he couldn't wait to spend some one-on-one time with his 6-year-old son, Max. The excitement had been building between them for days. Their first adventure into the safari park felt like an opportunity to step outside of the confines of their daily lives and escape into nature, just the two of them. Elijah was the kind of father who cherished moments like this. He wasn't just a provider, he was a hands-on dad who shared everything he could with Max, whether it was fishing at the lake or building model planes. Today was supposed to be another adventure, one to add to the growing list of memories. They'd been to zoos before, but this was different. At the safari park, the animals roamed freely, and for a few hours, they would be in the presence of creatures that felt closer to the wild. As they moved through the park, Max pressed his small face against the window, his wide eyes fixed on the giraffes grazing nearby. Eliza glanced over at him, smiling softly. It was a good day, the kind of day he had envisioned, a day for bonding. They were enjoying the sights and sounds of the park when they came to a small picnic area beside the baboon enclosure. The trees offered welcome shade, and Elijah found a spot to park under their cool cover. He had no reason to be concerned. The baboons seemed curious but not threatening. The windows remained slightly cracked, just enough for a breeze to filter in. The car felt like a safe haven, a cocoon from the animals outside. Elijah unwrapped their sandwiches, the faint chatter of the baboons in the distance blending with the rustle of leaves in the breeze. But the baboons weren't simply curious, they were opportunists. As the baboon troop grew closer, their chatter shifted in pitch, becoming more excited, more urgent. Elijah, still blissfully unaware, took a bite of his sandwich, the soft sound of Max's voice pointing out the animals, distracting him from the increasing clamor outside. A few moments passed before a large, aggressive baboon began to move toward the car. Its eyes were locked on the food inside. For a moment, it paused, unsure, but then, with sudden decisiveness, it reached up and began pulling at the rear window. Despite their often playful appearance, baboons are incredibly strong primates capable of inflicting serious harm. Males can weigh over 80 pounds and possess canine teeth longer than a lion's. Elijah's focus snapped from Max to the sound of glass groaning under pressure. The window lowered just enough for the baboon to slip inside. The moment the baboon's claws clicked against the doorframe, everything changed. A low growl, the creak of the door, and the sound of fabric being ripped filled the air. Within seconds, the inside of the car transformed from sanctuary to trap. More baboons followed, crowding through the window. Elijah's breath quickened, panic setting in. He reached out instinctively to shield Max, pulling him closer as the baboons swarmed. Their claws tore at Elijah's skin, and their sharp teeth sank into him. Max screamed, his voice rising in desperation, but his father's attempts to push him deeper into the seat were futile. The small space of the car, once comforting, now felt suffocating. Elijah's arms were scratched and bloodied as the baboons swarmed. The desperate sound of ripping fabric filled the air, mixing with the baboons' screeches and Max's frantic sobs. Elijah's heart raced. Every instinct screamed to protect his son, but the animals were fast, overwhelming him. In those final moments as he fought to keep Max safe, the chaos intensified. The baboons, driven by hunger and instinct, dragged Elijah toward the open window, their relentless assault impossible to stop. The sound of Max's terrified voice, Elijah's panicked cries, and the baboon's shrill screams all blended together in a terrifying cacophony. By the time the park staff reached them, Elijah had already lost too much blood. The baboons had retreated back into the trees, leaving only the horrific silence that followed their retreat. Max, still crouched in the back seat, was alive but covered in the remnants of the chaos. He had been unable to help, too scared to do anything but watch. But the steel frame of the car had protected him. His tiny body, trembling with shock, was a stark contrast to the silence that now filled the air. Elijah, however, was beyond saving. The staff rushed Max away, trying to shield him from the gruesome scene. Paramedics arrived too late, their efforts futile. Elijah DuPont's tragic death was a painful reminder of the dangers posed by wild animals, even in places meant to protect them. The primal terror of the attack left Max frozen, his silence in the aftermath a heartbreaking testament to the loss of the father he would never see again. Thanks for watching. These stories show how fast life can change in a single moment. Click here for more events that took a shocking turn.